What was the Holocaust? Since 1945, the world has taken on a new and horrible meaning. The mass murder of some 6 million European Jews by German Nazi regime during the Second World War. After years of Nazi rule in Germany, during which Jews were consistently persecuted, Hitler's final solution came down to fruition under the cover of World War, with the mass killing centers constructed in the concentration camps of occupied Poland.
Anti-Semitism in Europe did not begin with Hitler. There is evidence of hostility towards Jews long before the Holocaust, when Roman authorities destroyed the Jewish temple in Jerusalem and forced Jews to leave Palestine. The Enlightenment emphasized religious toleration, and in the 19th century, Napoleon and other European rulers enacted legislation that ended long-standing restrictions on Jews. This soon was known as racial character more than a religious one. Like many anti-Semites in Germany, Hitler blamed the Jews for the country's defeat in 1918. Soon after the war ended, Hitler joined the National German Workers' Party. Hitler was obsessed with the idea of pure German race. Hitler then took advantage of the weaknesses of his rivals to enhance his party's statuses and rise the obscurity to power. On January 20th, 1933, he was named Chancellor of Germany. After President Paul von Hindenburg's death in 1934, Hitler annulled himself for her, becoming Germany's supreme ruler. One of the first Nazi concentration camps was called Dachau, which was opened in March 1933 at the first interned-only known political opponents of the Nazis, which were communists, social democrats, and others who had been condemned in a court of law. Gradually, a more diverse group was imprisoned, including Jews, Jehovah's Witnesses, gypsies, descending clergy, homosexuals, as well as others who were denounced for making critical remarks about the Nazis. Nazis used mobile killing squads called Einsatzgruppen. In the fall of 1942, they had murdered about 1,500,000 Jews. In September 1941, the Nazis began using gassing vans, which would let out carbon monoxide. Then, in early 1942, the Jewish genocide went into full operation. Then they began the death camps. There was no selection process. Jews were destroyed upon arrival.
In Germany in 1933, Jews were living in every country of Europe. A total of roughly 9 million Jews lived in the country that would be occupied by Germany during World War II. By the end of the war, 2 out of every 3 Jews would be dead. Jews were very independent before they were emancipated by law. Jews spoke in their own language called Yiddish. They read their own books, attended movies and theaters. They even had their own traditional clothing. Jews could have been found in all walks of life, as farmers, doctors, teachers, and many other professions. Kids could even stay in school until they reached a university level.
As concentration camps served primarily as detention and labor centers, killing centers were almost exclusively death camps. They were either killed by gas or shootings by the Nazis. Almost everyone who arrived at the killing centers were sent immediately to the death in gas chambers. Up to 6,000 Jews were killed each day due to the gas chambers alone. By November of 1944, over 1 million Jews and tens of thousands of Roma, Poles, and Soviet prisoners of war were killed.
Dr. Joseph Mengele. Dr. Joseph Mengele, also known as the Angel of Death, was one of the few doctors at the death camps torturing men, women, and children, doing unspeakable, horrible medical experiments. Mengele did many medical experiments on twins as young as the age of 5 and usually murdered them after every experiment. He injected chemicals into their eyes of the children to attempt to change their eye color. He carried out twin-to-twin transfusions, stitched twins together, castrated or sterilized twins. Many twins had limbs or organs removed in macabre surgical procedures performed without using any anesthetic. How did the Holocaust come to an end? After 12 years, Allies were advancing on the Germans and began taking over their camps. In July of 1944, a camp in Poland was liberated by the Soviets. This was followed by many more liberations and takeovers as the Americans and other allies slowly removed Hitler from power. In 1945, Auschwitz was liberated. This was the biggest camp in the Nazi territory, and it also was the one where most of the deaths occurred. The liberation of the camp was a major milestone in the end of the Holocaust. By the end of the war, there were some 50,000 to 100,000 survivors that were living in occupied Europe. Within just a few years after the removal of Adolf Hitler from power, the number quickly climbed to over 2,000 people. In 1945, Allies finally invaded Germany. Hitler knew that he had been defeated and committed suicide the same year before Allies had a chance to capture him.